Because day after day after day, kids show up in schools that were designed 100 years ago, in buildings that were designed to look like factories that were built 100 years ago. And there's really been very little rigorous dialogue about what school could be in our country. In the late 80s, Car and Driver came out with another version of the Mustang, and they thought it would be funny to do a road test of a Mustang versus an actual Mustang. 223 horsepower on the right, 1 horsepower on the left. This is my perspective on what's happening in the global fight, the global race. We are still riding a damn horse. And we are having arguments about whether we should change the color of the saddle, or whether we should use a different type of leather for our harness, when every other country is building rockets and cars and things that move much faster. And so this, to me, is an argument for not talking about reforming our schools, but reinventing them. Innovation happens when you let culture develop to a point that you share your half hunch and I share my half hunch, and we build off of one another's half hunches to create a community of trust and innovation where it is okay to fail. It's okay to look like a fool because you haven't figured it out, but you're going to put your idea out there in front of the group and get feedback. And that's the antithesis of the way we've looked at education, and it's the antithesis of the way I felt as a teacher and as a principal and even as a district official, that I was not encouraged to share my questions or uncertainties because the kids' lives were at stake. I had to have the answer to every single question. And if you ask a classroom teacher today, that's the way they feel. The pressure to serve these kids out of pure nobility and purpose creates a culture that stagnates and discourages innovation. And at the core, that's what we're trying to change in the mindset and the culture of our schools. But these are just a few ideas I have for Atlanta. One, I think you should be thinking about non-school startups. Who's been to a co-working facility in Atlanta? Anybody ever been to one? So more of you should go, because this is where a lot of the young tech companies in Atlanta are being built today. We opened an office in New York City in January, and we're based out of a co-working facility where all of the tech startups in Chelsea are built. Not all, but many. And it's really important to create a connection between your education entrepreneurs and your other entrepreneurs, because you don't need policy to launch a non-school startup. This is a $600 billion industry. There are plenty of business opportunities for folks to make things better for existing constituents. And you need to spend zero political capital on it. A 10% skunkworks challenge. I've been talking with some national funders about putting pots of money together and saying to existing operators, for example, KIP Foundation. KIP runs some amazing schools in Atlanta. But what if funders got together and said, KIP and all of the other high-performing charters, I've got a pot of money here that you get access to if you commit to spending 5-10% of your budget on radical new versions of the KIP model. Genuinely building a skunkworks within your program. Because if the best schools aren't innovating, why do we expect that schools that are struggling to innovate? And there are many funders that are not asking those high performers to innovate, they're only asking them to scale, to add more seats. And the reality is, right, is that there are huge diseconomies of scale. KIP is now one of the biggest school districts in the country, but they have the disadvantage of operating those schools over 35 geographies. So correct, you can actually create tremendous momentum by taking your best folks and giving them a different incentive beyond just scaling. There's a group we work with called Startup Weekend. These are 54-hour weekend sessions to encourage people to think about new business or school ideas. We have a partnership with them. You can call these guys up and they can run Startup Weekend EDU in Atlanta in 6 months. Great way to sort of jumpstart that process of encouraging entrepreneurship and education. Village Capital is actually based here. Really great venture philanthropy shop. They're doing some super interesting vertical-based incubation and startup challenges all around the globe. They're a great thought partner that's here ready to talk to you. And then student-led schools. Within a year, I'm going to run a version of my 3-month incubator dedicated to 18 to 23-year-olds. I want them to come to me and say, what do you want to build in a school? And I will give you the money and the support start schools yourselves. Because every time I bring kids in, I never give money away in a competition unless kids and parents are on the judging panel. Kids statistically are spot on when you ask them about deficiencies in schools. They, go figure, because they're the customer, they know what's wrong. And you would be amazed at how rarely we actually ask them. Amanda did a survey of press coverage of school issues over the last 2 years. 20% of journalists actually ask kids about stories related to education. Even in the media, we are misunderstanding. We're solving the wrong problem. We're trying to fix the bureaucracy instead of trying to design for our users. And if we put kids and families at the center there, and we design for them, remarkable things happen. Often much cheaper than we're thinking about when we're trying to fix the whole system.